So it's 5:40 in the morning and I've just crawled out of my nest. I'm still in bed, but it's Friday and I've got nowhere to go today, and it is the first almost child-free day I've had for 3 weeks. My daughter's still here, but the others are at the dad's, and I thought I would do a 24-hour readathon. I've never done one of those before. Let's do some reading today. I just want to chill, and I'm not getting out of bed yet, which is lovely, and I'm just going to chill. So what am I reading at the moment? On my bedside table next to my bed, I've got Charles Dickens' Bleak House, and I've also got a dog crying next to me. Rupert, do you want to come up? Bleak House. I am on page, what am I on? Page 66 at the minute. So I'm going to do some reading of Bleak House today to start with. There's absolutely nothing better than a warm bed, happy dogs, and a great book with nothing to do and nowhere to go. The dogs could see I was settling in, and I do try and keep them off my bed, but I relent every time. I'm too soft with them, but who could resist that face? So Luna came to join me, nosing at my book and my arm every 5 minutes to get me to stroke her. It was just too cosy. I must confess I did snooze back off again. This wasn't the best reading session. I think the nail in the coffin was when Rupert got up and made my feet warm as well. So a bed full of rescue lurchers and great literature. So after I woke up for the second time, I got back up and carried on reading, a little bit behind with my 24 hours, but there you go. I soon got lost in this incredible book again, and look at the amazing illustrations. So I have a daughter upstairs doing A-level revision and not very well, and also a kitchen full of dirty dishes that I didn't do last night, sitting with my other daughters, grow your own capybara as you do. So I decided to put an audiobook on while I clean up and do breakfast. So shortlisted now for the Women's Prize for Non-Fiction. This is What the Wild Sea Can Be by Helen Scales. I listened to an hour of this morning and it was absolutely fabulous. And look at the cover, it is just so glorious. So I'm trying to read a few of the Women's Prize for Non-Fiction. So it was just great to have an audiobook while I did the jobs that I can't ignore. So I've read 50 pages of Bleak House, not as much as I wanted to. I did go to sleep. My dog's jumping up on the bed got me super cosy and warm again, and I fell back to sleep. So only 50 pages, so I am going to read a bit more of this today. But oh my goodness. So this is the second big Charles Dickens book that I've ever read. So in January, February and March I read David Copperfield and just loved David Copperfield so hard. I loved it, and I wondered whether it was just a fluke good book and whether I would like any more. So Bleak House is the next book I'm reading, which I'm trying to get read just in April to fit my prompt on my reading prompts of April showers. A book with weather on the cover, and it's got a weather vane. Those 50 pages I realised what the weather vane on the front is all about. It's to do with the character Mr. John Dice, the guardian of our main character Esther Somerville. I think that's the right name. Not Somerville, Summerson, Esther Summerson. And he is, whenever he gets upset, he blames it on the direction of the wind, and he's just the most wonderful character. And that's what I'm finding all over again in the first 110 pages of Bleak House. Is Dickens can write characters like nobody else I've ever come across. It is just wondrous, beautiful, glorious writing. I've got so many tabs, but I'm just tabbing because I'm astonished by the writing. I am just loving it all over again. There are a number of fantastic characters. I've just met the brusque character of Mrs. Pardiggle, and it's just so funny to read. We've got a character that kind of knocks over furniture with like a vortex of her dresses. Wherever she goes, she's knocking over tables, she's knocking over chairs, she's basically knocking over anything small that isn't nailed down. And it's just so fun and funny to read. And yet she is placed against a backdrop of social commentary that is heartbreaking, and the two extremes just work so brilliantly. I love about 8 characters, and I'm only 110 pages in, and I just can't wait to meet more characters, to watch him weave all the plots back together again. I want to read at least another 100 pages of this book today, because I do want to get it done this month. Although I'm not going to rush it. If it's not done, that's fine. Another thing I'll say about Bleak House, I've just realised, is there was a tense change. We were with Esther Summerson. She was our narrator, talking in past tense. And all of a sudden it's gone to present tense with a kind of onlooking narrator with a completely different story. The two storylines have just converged via another fantastic character that I've only just met and already I love. So I've just met the character of Mr. Lawrence Boythorn, who is a school-time friend of Mr. Jarndyce. And oh my gosh, he's such a fantastic character. He's loud and he's got a booming laugh. He's just wonderful. And yet he's got this tiny pet canary, and the juxtaposition, the total opposites of the two things brought together just make for some absolutely brilliant writing. And it's through that character that the two specific storylines are going on in this book, which is different to David Copperfield. They've just joined and I can see where the connection is, but we do have a change of tenses, which threw me at first. I thought, what's gone on? What's going on? Then I realised it was two storylines. So we've got one in a past tense and one in a present tense. It'll be really interesting to see how these plot lines come together. It's just Dickens putting down the pieces of the jigsaw puzzle, waiting to bring them together. Oh my gosh, it's so good. Okay, I am going to take a break, I think, from reading Bleak House. I am absolutely really loving it, but I am stalling now. I think I just need to read something different for a little bit. I've read about another 40 pages, and the language in this book is just so gorgeous. We meet Mr. and Mrs. Snagsby, who are they write out legal documents, and Mrs. Snagsby is very loud. Mr. Snagsby is very quiet, and he likes to go walking in nature. And I'm going to read you a little bit about just an introduction to Mr. Snagsby that leads you from meeting him to following nature to the next character, and it's just so beautifully written. So we've just met Mr. Snagsby, and we've just found out that he escapes to nature. It's not quite as quiet as you might think. He just loves losing himself in nature. but he's back home at this point in the middle of London, and it says, "The day is closing in and the gas is lighted, but it is not yet fully effective, for it is not quite dark. Mr. Snagsby, standing at his shop door, looking up at the clouds, sees a crow, who is out late, skim westward over the slice of sky belonging to Cook's Court. The crow flies straight across Chancery Lane and Lincoln's Inn Garden, into Lincoln's Inn Fields. Here, in a large house, formerly a house of state, lives Mr. Tulkinghorn. It is let off in sets of chambers now, and in those shrunken fragments of its greatness, lawyers lie like maggots in nuts. Mr. Tulkington, when not speechlessly at home in country houses where the great ones of the earth are bored to death, here he is today, quiet at his table, an oyster of the old school whom nobody can open." Oh, it is just such beautiful writing. So I'm loving it, but I'm stalling. So what I'm going to do, I brought you up into my bedroom where we started this vlog. Up on my shelf up here, I'll take you down and I'll show you. I've got kind of a rough idea of my TBR. It's also a rollover from last month's TBR as well. I'm just going to see if there's anything I really fancy on there now. So next to my tarot trolley, I have this little tiny bookcase, which is all of my Victorian literature that I've got at the moment. And on top with some sort of Dickensian dolls. I thought they looked like Dickensian dolls. And because I'm doing this Dickens, this is Dickens at the top shelf, I just thought, you know what, I'm going to put some Dickensian dolls with them. But anyway, on top I've got sort of books I'm currently reading, or sort of a rollover TBR list. So Slewfoot I never got to. I'm still dying to get to this Ithel Colquhoun art book. I tell you what I am dying to get to. I am dying to get to this Diary of a Witch by Sybil Leek. And I haven't done a witchy read yet this month, and I didn't get to this last month. This is a rollover book along with Slewfoot. So I could pick Diary of a Witch. I think that's a definite possibility. Also, there's the Enchanted April. We're in April. This is a 1922 book, Elizabeth von Arnim. And it's not too big. Look, that might be a nice break. So... and it fits with sort of April showers prompt because it's a season. They go to Italy in spring, so it's linked to spring. So I could bring that one out as well. On my desk here, oh my gosh, if you see here, I have got two books that you can see I have already started reading. Both of these books by the tabs and the annotation. These are books I'm reading for my DIY literature degree. I really prioritised, I said I was going to prioritise this month this book, and also beginning to find out about literary theory. So I've got this Peter Barry book, Beginning Theory. Oh boy, is it a mind bender. You can see, look, I've been writing and I've been annotating. So far I've read about liberal humanism. I think I've kind of wrapped my brain around what liberal humanism is or was. And the second chapter is structuralism. Oh my goodness me. Does this fire your brain to find out about? You can see I've been trying to make it easier in the margins. So, but I think before I move on from structuralism, I need to write some notes on that chapter that I've just read. The next chapter is post-structuralism and deconstruction. I think I've got another literary theory book that has another chapter about structuralism in. I think I want to read that chapter in the other book before I move on to post-structuralism. So it might be that I do that other chapter of structuralism, but not yet. I don't want to do that yet. Oh, I've also been reading Barbara Walker's Feminist Fairy Tales. Also, oh my gosh, yes, April has got the most fantastic prompt. Is it prompt? I suppose it's a readathon, really. It's called Picture This, with picture books, adults reading picture books. And I brought up in my bedroom, you can see down in this corner on the floor, I've brought up some picture books because whenever I go charity shopping, because I am an artist as well, I adore picture books. And I've got a few picture books that I haven't read yet. So I bought a pile of picture books up for Picture This, which I'm going to do a separate video about that. But I did order this one new. This is John Classen's The Skull. I bought this as a homage to Alice from the Giant Bookshelf, who is a booktuber that I didn't know because I wasn't on BookTube then. I'm very new to BookTube, but it is a booktuber that I've since swallowed, and I've been watching her back videos. Unfortunately, BookTube lost Alice, I think probably about 6 months ago, I'm not too sure, but she loved the Picture This readathon, and John Classen was one of her favourite picture book authors. So I bought this, The Skull, in honour of Alice, so I'm going to get that out. But also, I also found, there it is, charity shopping, I also found another John Classen. This one is written by Mac Barnett, illustrated by John Classen. The Wolf, the Duck and the Mouse. I'm going to bring both of those out. Those might be really nice light relief in a 24-hour readathon. And I've just thought, my gosh, down here on this bottom shelf down here, there is a book that I forgot to share, my April TBR video, because I got this gorgeous edition of The Wind in the Willows for £5. Can you believe it, guys? This was £5, and I really want to read this as well. Of course, it's got the word wind in, which fits in with my weather prompt. Oh my gosh, shall I get this out? I just think that this book is just gorgeous. I mean, look at those illustrations on the end papers. Oh my gosh. So this, I wonder if this would class for picture books as well. I mean, is this just an illustrated copy, or was the original Wind in the Willows as illustrated? Possibly. I'm sure I could push it in, couldn't I, for picture books. The illustrations are just so stunning. Wow. Oh my gosh, guys, look at these illustrations. Oh, it's the first time I've really looked at it. Okay, so I might start Wind in the Willows as well. So I've got a few there. What am I going to start with first? I think I'm going to read the John Classen books first. That's what I want to do. So a change of scene at my desk in my bedroom. I'm going to read The Skull first, and I've got a black coffee ready to go. This is a mug that Tilly bought me with her own money as a Mother's Day present, along with that gorgeous Ted. Isn't that Teddy just beautiful? So thank you, Tilly, for my beautiful mug. Right, John Classen, here we come. So we're joined by Luna again up on the bed. I know I shouldn't, but I have. Like The Skull, John Classen's book. I absolutely loved it. So very, very interesting. We've got a girl called Attila. I'm just going to share the front page because there was something really interesting on this front page, I thought. It starts off with the words, "One night in the middle of the night, while everyone else was asleep, Attila finally ran away. And that word finally in there made me think that it sounds like she's running away from a family or a situation that has been awful for a long time, because to leave in the middle of the night when it's dark, snowy, and there's a forest outside, and it's a decision that you finally come to, and I think that just hints very cleverly in very few words that there was something going on, and having escaped a family situation myself as the family scapegoat, and finally having decided to leave what should have been a home for me and what should have been the people who had my back, I was immediately in it. And then for her to immediately find herself in the forest, and the artwork is just stunning, but a forest that gets progressively less familiar and darker and more foreboding, just took me back to that journey of escaping what should have been home. And she just gives up and she lies down in the snow, and I've been there, I've been in that forest and I've been in that snow, but there is always a new dawn around the corner. And it just made me think that forest journey, that emotional forest, I actually depicted it in one of my journals, and it reminded me of this page in my journal, about going through a forest and the only way out is through, and there she is going through. Now, when I was going through that journey, I dissociated a lot by drawing vertical lines, and you can see I've drawn the vertical lines here on this reclaimed book. So this is kind of my way of working through emotions for me, and this was my journey in the woods. With there's watercolour work, there's ink work on there, there's my own paper cutting as well. I was immediately in that place, so I think it's just throwing that word finally in there did that for me. Also, we meet a skull. Obviously the skull becomes like found family. This has got a real found family trope, and the skull who is being tracked down by the rest of the skeleton, and again something that the skull belongs to, a headless skeleton. The skull should belong to its skeleton, but it's hiding. They're both hiding from things that they should belong to. It was interesting, really interesting read for me. So you can see picture books aren't just for kids, are they? They really aren't. Loved it. And then the other picture book, which John Classen illustrated, written by Mark Barnett, The Wolf, the Duck and the Mouse. Again, just fantastic, about overcoming dire circumstances and finding new homes. Again, we've got a forest featuring, but new homes after something horrendous has happened, and finding the gold within something terrible, mining for gold. Again, it links to a personal history of what I've gone through. Other people can wish you harm, but you can mine it for gold until you've turned it into something so incredible you'll be dancing and having a party. So gorgeous reads, those two. And now I think I'm going to have a go at reading Diary of a Witch by Sybil Leek. So I'll see you the other side. So this is a very old library book. It's just a fantastic copy, and I absolutely love this inscription. It says, "To my sons Stephen and Julian, who understand the family tradition and so make it easy for me to be their mother and not merely a legend." How cool is that? So I'm probably not going to be speaking any sense now because it's after 12, so I'm super tired, but I've actually finished reading Sybil Leek's Diary of a Witch. So this was published in the year that I was born, in 1968, and I'd actually never heard of her until I got this book. She is a New Forest witch, heralded as the most famous witch from England. what a fascinating woman. She talks in the very beginning about her family tree. So she talks about generational witchcraft, because her roots in witchcraft went right back to the famous witch Molly Lee, who was a witch near Stoke-on-Trent in the Midlands, so not far from where I live, in a place called Burslem. And I have heard of the Burslem witches, and that's linked around Molly Lee, who was her most famous ancestor. And the story of Molly Lee goes that when she died, the vicar didn't want to bury her in consecrated ground in the churchyard, but he finally relented, but said she had to be buried separately, with her grave pointing the other direction to all the other graves. And she couldn't have a stone over the grave either. So she was buried, and then the vicar, with the men that worked for him, decided to then go to her cottage out of curiosity, and they opened the front door, and she was sitting there in her chair with her pet jackdaw bird with her, and she was just there in front of them, even though they just buried her. So all the men and the vicar ran away, and they decided to dig her back up and put a stake through her heart, and to capture the jackdaw that was still alive, and to bury the jackdaw back again with the body again. And what a story. So that happened, and he refused any gravestone to mark where she was buried. So her coven witches then dragged all of the temple stones in the night from where they would meet for the coven. And with the temple stones, they made a makeshift tomb from the temple stones, and everybody was too scared to touch the stones, and it's still there to this day. So I could go and visit that graveyard. It is said to be haunted at night by witches and by Molly Lee, and a woman has been seen walking around the grave talking to a bird. So there is that story there in Sybil Leek's ancestry, which is fascinating. And out of the 6 men that were involved with all of that happening, it was said within 3 months 3 of those men went mad and ended up in asylums, and the other 3 all befell really massive financial calamity, including the vicar. So fascinating. And this book is, and her history is full of stories like that. She was educated till she was 12 by her grandmother, another witch, who taught her all about astrology. Her aunt taught her about being able to speak to animals and to be able to call animals and birds to her. She also had a pet jackdaw that stayed with her all the time. And the whole family, they were friends with H.G. Wells. She was friends with the Crowley, who would walk with her up over the hills and teach her how to do kind of trance poetry, tell her his poetry as well. So just a fascinating life. At 12 she went to school. That didn't go down so well, and then as soon as she could leave, she left, and she lived with gypsies for a year. She ended up moving to America, and she did loads of TV work there. So a really fascinating story about a very famous English witch. And it is so late now, it's after 12, because I then went onto YouTube, fascinated by her, and was watching videos with interviews with her and videos about her life, which you can find if you search Sybil Leek interview. You'll see her on YouTube, and it's a fascinating read. So it is now 12 o'clock, and the bad thing about starting my readathon at 5:40 is that now I am looking at going another 5 hours, which I just can't do. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to bed, but I'm going to get up early again in the morning, and I am going to add on the extra few hours after I've had a sleep. And I remembered I've still got this book to read. This is for March's reading. This is Barbara Walker's The Skeptical Feminist, Discovering the Virgin Mother and Crow. And I am, you can see, about just under halfway through it, and you can see from the amount of tabs on it that, oh my gosh, this has been such a fantastic read. So I need to finish that. I'm going to try and get that finished in the morning. And on the theme of witches, I've also got an Amanda Lovelace poetry book, The Witch Doesn't Burn, in this one. I'm going to add some poetry in. So I'm going to go to bed now, but in the morning, let's see if I can get these two finished, and that will be my 24 hours done. And so after a quiet morning of reading more Bleak House, I move on to Amanda Lovelace's poetry, and I'm going to read one poem here called Vengeance is the New Moving On. Gather round, are you comfortable? Very good, because this poem goes out to all the match boys who mistakenly considered me to be a silly little girl, unworthy of their truth, unworthy of their love, and unworthy of their respect. Know that every time you jerk awake mid-free-fall, it was me who pushed you out of your 3 a.m. dreams. And know that whenever you feel that chill creeping up and down your spine on a warm summer's day, I'm the one who's been dancing all over your grave. And know that whenever you think you spot a shadow in your peripheral, it's just me making sure you never hurt another woman again. It's such a shame that you'll finally have to learn that there are consequences to treating women like they're nothing. You may have gotten to walk away, but a piece of me will follow you forever. Now, isn't that romantic? So that was so much fun. Roughly, I would say about 24 hours, not straight through. I need some sleep at least. And it's quite interesting. I've watched 24-hour readathons across YouTube. I do like watching them. And I see people finishing big stacks of books, like 7, 8 books. I certainly didn't do that, and I did go through a little crisis of confidence with this video, thinking, what's up with me? Why have I not read as much as everybody else does? But it gave me a moment to pause and think, and we all read at different rates, and I think booktube and comparison, it is a game with no winners. We end up judging each other, and more importantly judging ourselves. So it was a real moment just to pause and to just think about my own reading pace, what I want to get from my reading, and to be okay with exactly what I've read, which isn't really complete books. So I started and I read throughout the 24 hours Bleak House by Charles Dickens. I started on page 66 and I got up to page 188. So that's a fair chunk of this 730 page book, and I'm really happy with that. I was going to get up to about 230, but I didn't want to rush it. I only get to read Bleak House by Charles Dickens for the first time once ever. I want to savour it. I want to love it. I think part of my experience with David Copperfield that made it so special was that I ran it over January, February and March. I just read a little every day, and I wrote about that little bit I'd read every day, and it just absolutely sealed it onto my heart, reading it slowly and savouring it. And it made me even think that if I don't get this finished just in April, which was my plan, then perhaps I could do April, May for Bleak House, because I want it to feel like the David Copperfield reading experience, not rushed. we only get to do certain things for the first time once. Let's not rush it with some sort of false comparison to what we think we should be doing. That's my preach for reading and your reading and my reading. I'm telling myself this on repeat as well, so I'm saying it to myself. So I just thought, oh my gosh, I don't think I even want to finish this in April. I want to drag it out slower than that. But I read just over 100 pages, probably about 120 pages of Bleak House, which I'm loving. I love it. I love everything so far that I've read of Charles Dickens. Another book that is a carryover from my March TBR was The Skeptical Feminist by Barbara G. Walker. This is amazing. This is kind of charting so far her path as a girl, virgin going into mother, of looking at the way the church has or did get rid, and still does, completely gets rid of and stamps on the head of the goddess. And wow, is this a book that I needed to read right now, right where I am in life. You can see from the amount of tags I've got on it and the amount of annotation, this is wonderful. I did say I was going to try and get this finished, but I read about 20 pages of this, full of note taking. I needed that 20 pages to sit and soak in. I needed to go over those thoughts again. I didn't want to read anymore. I don't want to rush it. This might end up being, say, a 3-month book, even though it's not that big. So really pleased I read a little bit more of that. What I did read the entire book of is Amanda Lovelace's The Witch Doesn't Burn in this one. So Amanda Lovelace, I know Amanda Lovelace from decks. I've got her tarot deck, I've also got her oracle deck, but Amanda Lovelace also does poetry. So I think this is one of a series of books. The women are some kind of magic series. Book 1 is The Princess Saves Herself in this one, and book 2, The Witch Doesn't Burn in this one. So those are the 2 books I mentioned at the beginning of the book. I really loved this. Again, kind of ties in with Barbara Walker's book for where I am at the moment. There is some female rage going on at the moment. Just as I look back and look at my life and look at the patriarchal effects on my life, just perfect reading. So I did love this, and I would recommend that as a poetry collection. Even if you don't like poetry, it's one of those. It's really good. I did catch up on a book that I didn't get to in March. I did read all of this. So I read The Diary of a Witch by Sybil Leek. As I said in the video, wow, what a woman. What a woman. Yeah, Google her, or if you can get your hands on this book, do get your hands on this book. Fantastic. I also started reading on audio book as I was doing some chores, What the Wild Sea Can Be. I'm really keen to carry on with that one this month. And then I started my reading for Picture This, for the picture book, reading through April. John Classon, The Skull, and The Wolf, the Duck, and the Mouse. I really do think that children's literature has so much to offer adults when you sit and spend time with it and think about it and go over some of the key things that impact you, whether that be the glorious pictures and what you get from the pictures, or whether it be from single words, like I said in this, that word finally in Attila, finally ran away. That just struck me into my soul, and it shaped and put a lens on the whole reading of this story for me, and which made it really emotionally impactful. Followed on by this, which kind of built into the same theme. So some fantastic children's literature there. So really not loads in comparison, but for me a beautiful 24 hours of reading and being swept away by the books that I own. So I do hope you enjoyed that, and I do hope that me talking about that comparison and that idea of racing and not racing and savouring in some way might impact you as well. I just know from reading Dickens, really, it's Dickens that's put it in my mind that the slower the better, because we get to just savour it, and we'll never get that experience again. So take your time and don't race. So guys, thank you for joining me for my very first ever 24-hour readathon. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time. Bye.